So over the next 20 minutes, hopefully we're going to unpack a little bit about the strategy, what it really means in practice, and I think how it connects to the new framework, which we're going to be talking about. And I think it's about helping us tackle one of those biggest challenges facing our sector, building the right digital skills, and I think the confidence in workplace. So I'm joined by Paul Woddy, nima's Vice Chair for Upskilling and Education. I think it's fair to say he's been leading much of this work and shaping the framework from the start. Paul's been a long-time advocate for, I would say, practical standards-based learning that's really bridging that gap between policy and practice. So he's definitely the right man for this job. So Paul, before we get in the details of the framework itself, maybe tell us a little bit about your role within NIMA. What does it mean being the Vice Chair for Upskilling and Education? What does it involve? And how does it connect to the work you've been leading on around the development of this framework?
Yeah, thanks, Stefan. I think it's fair to say that I approached NIMA about 18 months ago with a body of work that I've been kind of tinkering with for getting on for a decade, on and off. And I sort of said to them, right, here's something that is a framework for education, for building a sustainable education approach. And I talked them through it, and they said, that's absolutely fantastic, but we don't have anybody to lead that or anybody to run with it. And fast forward 18 months, here I am with the job. So it shouldn't be a surprise to me.
Great session currently happening in the Bentley networking room. Do come and join us.
And so tell us a bit about, before we jump into the framework, I think when I hear the word framework, sometimes it can sound a bit high level or even theoretical. Yeah. I mean, is this something that organizations can actually use in practice? Tell us a little bit about the background. Is it for local authority, consultancy? Could contractors start to pick this up?
Yeah, absolutely. It's intended to be not a panacea as such. It's intended to be something that is usable by everybody and for different perspectives. And that might sound like a kind of a boastful claim, but essentially what we're attempting to do is to sort of define a method by which we can accept that it's not one size fits all when it comes to an IM education, and to build a mechanism by which we can tailor the curricula, tailor the message to any persona, but from a standardized position. So creating a master list of activities and responsibilities, and then to sort of to look at how each persona in the industry might react with that list of that master list. That's part of the strategy. There's several parts to it, but that's certainly how the framework that we're talking about. That's how that kind of came about.
Okay. So I guess you probably touched on what I was going to talk about next. I know you've been working closely with training providers and professional bodies. How would you see this framework maybe connecting with, existing education pathways and apprenticeships? I think especially as we're seeing people come into the industry through digital and technical routes rather than kind of the traditional ones.
Yeah, I think what I've done is to start to look at the kind of the entry points that people engage with this subject. Where are they likely to come across the information management in construction and construction in general? I mean, we're a part of the solution in terms of filling these knowledge gaps and encouraging young people into the industry. And we're a mechanism that might well get people excited that otherwise might look at construction as being a site-based dirty job. So to me, it's kind of understanding where those likely touch points are, and then reviewing how well we can respond to requirements in those areas and where we need to offer help. So that's kind of the first stage of understanding what NEMA can do to help from an academic perspective.
Yeah, and I guess this is going to cut right across industry, academia, and government. Particularly when we're talking about digital skills, we all tend to interpret what that means slightly differently. So is this about making sure we're all speaking the same language?
It is, but at the same time, it's accepting the fact that there are lots of different languages. We've got to acknowledge that as NEMA, we have two camps. We have those that are those for whom IM is the main course. It's what they do when they get up in the morning. It's about IM, and then there's those for whom we're a side dish, and we have to acknowledge that it's important to us, but is it as important to others? So we've got those two perspectives that we need to respond to, and amongst those, especially those for whom we're a side dish, there is a myriad of sort of personas involved in that. So it's everything from your painting contractor, your chair manufacturer, your lawyer, your architect, your engineer, your QS. There's 1,000 different languages that they're speaking. But what we need to do is to try and find a common dictionary in the middle of all of that, a sort of a thesaurus that means that we can still engage on common ground, but accepting the fact that they do so from many, many different perspectives.
Yeah, it's interesting. You describe like a side dish for some people, and for some people it's that day job. For me, I find it quite interesting because this is cutting right across all domains, isn't it? It's cutting across architectural, civil, landscaping, right across the built environment.
Yeah, exactly. And coming back to your very first question to me, what's my remit in my role at NEMA? And it is that it's to define that message, to be the guiding light in terms of what the curriculum looks like for those core NEMA IM professionals, but also to engage with other institutions, other bodies that represent people, and to identify what their IM requirements are, and to help them through the sort of process of joining this common conversation. Brilliant.
Before we get stuck into the framework, I know you've got a short presentation. We know the sector's moving so quickly. We've already talked about sort of AI today and digital twinning, open data ecosystems. All this stuff is moving at a real fast pace. How is the framework, or how do you envisage the framework kind of evolving so that it stays relevant and, dare I say, sort of future-proof as technologies and processes mature?
That's a good question, and I'm not sure I have all of the technology answers as yet, but what I do foresee is that we need to move away from approaches that have been taken in the past, which has been to produce and publish a document that is, a line in the sand at a given time, that is, well researched, well written, and is brilliant for today, but tomorrow is already chip paper, as they say. So in that sense, I see this more as more like a wiki page. It's more of an online live document that exists here, rather than a laminated PDF that is something to refer to. So it is live. It is, and we can't, as with much in IM, we can't foresee now all of the different nuances and personas that might engage with this. We can take a guess, we can have a good go for today's audience, but ultimately there will be people coming around the corner that we've not envisaged, that we've don't even know exist. And so the system needs to be able to respond to that kind of evolution.
Mm. And as part of that evolution, then, if anybody in the room, or even if they're listening back to this, if they want to kind of support and engage, whether that's as an individual or through their organisation, what's the best way that they can get involved or to start using the framework to support their own upskilling journey?
That is, again, very good point, and I will bring up I'll put it there now, but I'll bring it back up again at the end. But essentially, we are calling for volunteers at several levels to assist with this process. So what I'm about to show you is the start of a framework, the start of the master list that I described earlier. We're going to need a collection of different personas to help us to refine that list, to sort of find the nuances and those little kind of sideline issues that need to be brought to the fore. We need to hear them, and therefore we'll be pulling together various expert panels to help define a lot of the work that we're going to be looking at, and then from there to review and to then help to sort of drive the adoption. So there's plenty of opportunity to get involved and to help with this. And this QR code, if you scan this QR code, I've even written the email for you in the QR code. So if you scan this, you've just got to press send, and it comes to me, and I own your soul.
Thanks, Paul. So hopefully that gives a little bit of context and background to the framework. Should we jump into it?
Yeah, please. Yeah. So just before I jump into the framework itself, I just wanted to also mention there's kind of two key pillars of my strategy for how we push NIMA upskilling forwards, and the first of those is what was previously known as the BIM Academic Forum, and some of you may have heard of that before, but it was 15 years ago. It was created as a means of bringing together universities that were dealing in BIM in some form or another, and essentially giving them a forum to meet, to discuss, to share ideas. And it kind of died out some time ago. I want to bring that back, but I want to expand the kind of the remit of that. And I'd like to take that down from universities, down into colleges, down into secondary schools, down to the students themselves, and into apprenticeship frameworks, and into apprenticeship providers, and in fact the employer. And the idea there is to connect at all levels in a way that focuses upon the learner's journey. So at the moment, certainly in academia, there tends to be a siloed approach, and I did kind of bully this out of Alison during our panel talk earlier, of trying to sort of say, what happens when they leave your environment of deck and then go on. And at the moment, it's kind of every institution assumes that they're starting with a blank page as far as forward, or they assume too much in terms of what was on. So I want to create kind of learning pathways through academia and into professional learning, and get the kind of education providers to talk to one another. So that's kind of the first pillar of with the BIM Academic Forum, and that I'm hoping to kick off the first of those new events at Easter next year, to bring together a group of different academics in an environment where we can start to discuss and advance that agenda. So that's the kind of first pillar. The second pillar is again kind of regurgitating an old idea, which is the Learning Outcomes Framework, something that's been published and revised a few times. And this is what I want to turn into the new framework, the new concept that we've alluded to already. And the idea with this particular, sorry, that wasn't meant to be animated. The idea with this particular kind of objective of here is that we want to create a very clear career path through, as I said, through academia, but also through somebody's professional career as they move through a company, through a particular profession. And it doesn't really matter what the titles are down the left-hand side, but essentially we want to be able to, from an IM perspective, want to be able to show somebody where they are now and where they need to get to. And in order to do that, we need to understand, first of all, what they know. So we need to an assessment of capability, but we also need to understand what they should know, either in order to fulfill their current role or in order to advance. So if we're going to look at what they need to know to move to the next level and what experience they should have in order to move up, then we need to have a really kind of detailed look at what those tasks and responsibilities are likely to be. And this is kind of the point at which I'll bring you into this little table here. Now, there's various versions of this. In fact, there's lots and lots of versions of this particular table. And oh, can you see it? Can you see it on the screen or not?
So we're looking at the career progression roadmap at the moment.
No, that's not what I want you to be looking at right now. I thought you were seeing my screen, but you're actually seeing. Well, I'll try again. Share screen. Entire screen. That one. Okay. All right. Hopefully. Okay. So that's
the one. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So So this is what I mentioned as being on and off kind of almost a decade's work, which might not necessarily look it, but it is through lots of iterations. And there are many, many versions of this, and there's lots of versions to come. Essentially, what we have here is an analysis of ISO 19650 parts 2, 3, 5, and ISO 41001. And that the basis of that, if you don't know 41001, that is all about organizational readiness. It's about a client, an asset owner, preparing their internal systems, their internal facilities management approaches for a digital way forward. So it's in preparing to move into that procurement stage. So pre-19650, we're not in the capital works phase. We are preparing an organization so that they can sit down at the table when they come to procure a new asset, and they can ask the right questions. They can define the correct BIM use cases. They can join in the conversation in a meaningful way. And that to me is absolutely critical to what we need to do. And I think it shows an indication of where I'm looking with this master list, is that I want to kind of make sure that we're bringing in lots of perspectives that I think have currently been lacking in the whole BIM discussion to date in many cases, that we've been too blinkered in a design and construction approach to how we do things, and we're perhaps missing some of the key points just because it's not part of our remit. So that's why I need to bring in lots of different perspectives, lots of different personas into this conversation in order to kind of to work on this project with us. So the idea is to analyze. In this case, I've analyzed these particular standards, and I've brought forward each of the tasks and responsibilities, regardless of who's doing them, regardless of where they fit in the process. This is a list of all the tasks and responsibilities from those standards. Added to which there are then certain anecdotal responsibilities that may well feed into some of those standardized tasks. So if in order to fulfill document A, you've got to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then we cover it in the list. And essentially, we kind of work down this list, and you can see we work down through the standard, all the wording that you're all very, very familiar with. We've also got in this particular, in one of the versions here, we've also got bits that talk about professional understanding. So can you, what are your personal skills? What are your soft skills? Are you able to lead a meeting? Are you able to stand up and present? Are you able to run a coordination event, etc., etc.? So there's lots and lots of there's lots and lots of kind of, as the anecdotal tasks that are added to it. So once we've got this master list, there's lots and lots of things we can do. In this particular analysis, in this particular table, as you can see, what I've done is I've started to analyze different contractual arrangements and understand who is likely to be responsible for and contributing to some of these tasks and responsibilities across the different contract arrangements. So that's one way of looking at the information. Another way might be to look at within a certain entity. So there's two here I'm looking at, but within a certain entity, who might be, what might that sort of structure look like, and who might be responsible for those tasks from a seniority approach. So not just about a spread across the different disciplines, but also within each of those professions, who is likely to be taking that on in terms of the seniority of the member of staff. So we start to look at the colouring system here of yellow when they start to understand it, pale green when they start to deliver it, and green when they're responsible for it, and then grey if you've got oversight of it. So we've got, again, different ways of looking at the same information, being able to sort of add depths to all of this across the board. Now, having got to that point, then there's even more things we can do, because now we can start. So from a training perspective, and this is where this particular version came from, me with my hat on as a curriculum developer, I can look at this and I can say, I can filter this list, and I can start off by saying, right, well, which are the tasks and responsibilities that are applicable to this particular profession, this persona. And then when I filter that list down even further to say, right, at trainee level, at technician level, at coordinator level, what are those tasks and responsibilities likely to be? Then we can start to build very clear frameworks for course material, for a curriculum. So we can build a syllabus around the specific needs of you, either in the position you're in now or in the step you need to get to. So going back to that career progression roadmap, this gives us a clear way of identifying, well, okay, so you are here on this roadmap, you've got plenty of experience, you should be moving up to the next level. These are the bits you need to understand. These are the bits you need to know. And therefore we have a task list that we can put in front of somebody. So that's kind of the very basics of the of how that kind of works. Now, what that means in terms of the of what we can do with it, as I say, we can start to, as I said, we can build training courses around those specifications. We can sort of say, right, these are the competencies we need to fulfill. These are the modules that we can pull together in order to do that, and we can work forward. So there's lots of ways from a training perspective that we can look at that. But there's even more ways we can kind of look at that if we kind of start to assess each of these in a slightly different way. So forgetting the training perspective for a second, another way of looking at this is if we go to I mentioned that I'm looking at both at the NEMA main course people that are using IM religiously, and then we've got the side dish people that might be members of IWFM or REBA, or they might be for Institute of Civil Engineering, and we're working with them to sort of then identify what their digital requirements might be. So if you take any institution, any kind of trade body, any representative body, and say to them, there's the master list. Which of these on this list are actually applicable to yourself, your members? And then from that, we can create a list that is applicable. We can turn that into a knowledge shape. And once we've got it as a knowledge shape, we can then start to say, right, well, if the blue represents what I'm looking for, and the gray represents an individual who has fulfilled, has answered my questions, has done an assessment, the gray represents the capability they are able to offer, then we can start to look for matches. So this is not just about career. This is not just about, you might instantly think there that this is about recruitment. It could be, but it's not just about that. It's about being able to assess capabilities. It might be a case of saying, right, this is a member of my staff. The blue line represents what I need them to know. The grey is where they are now. Right. So what do we need to teach them? Where do we need to go in terms of their continued learning in order to get them to fill that blue line? Now, some of this information might be that we do self-assessment. Some of it might be done through, questionnaires. Some of it might be yes, no. Some of it might be done because they've sat an exam in a formal approach and they've got 86%. So there's all sorts of different ways that we can assess capability in these different ways. And obviously we put a weighting on what that means. So if it's self-assessment, it's taken with a pinch of salt. If it's actually, a degree that you got from Edinburgh Napier, then, that's a proven capability or proven knowledge, should I say. Added to which we then start to look at logbooks and signed off experience from others to say that you are capable of delivering that. So just to run through a couple of different scenarios where this might lead. First of all, as I say, if we were looking at three different candidates, the blue line represents what we're looking for. The grey line represents what the candidates can give to us. Now, in this scenario here, you might look at that and say, well, candidate 3 is clearly the weaker of the 3, and that candidate 2 is the one I want to look at. Another way of looking at that, and for me, the most important way of looking at that, goes back to what I said at the beginning, that we're not looking for a one-size-fits-all, that everybody's got a different language, everybody's got a different approach to what IM means for their profession. And maybe we're asking the wrong question if we're trying to compare those 3 different people to the same benchmark. And actually, if we look at what each of those candidates knows in relation to what they should know, as defined by their peers, well, actually, candidate 3 is more than qualified to do the job they are doing. And this is where this framework becomes flexible and comes into its own, because we start to see that any of these perspectives can be matched to the requirements of their profession, and we can assess them against that. But at the same time, we're working to a master list. So if there's any crossover, if there's common ground, then we're working to the same way. And a third way of looking at these same 3 charts here is that actually potentially this is the same person, because those blue lines, those 3 different blue shapes that we see there, might actually be 3 different questions. So think of that as being almost like 3 different BEPs in response to 3 different EIRs. If the person asking the question has got different requirements, then the assessment is going to deliver a different knowledge shape. So therefore, this person is responding to 3 different queries and giving a knowledge shape in response to those 3 queries. So again, just like the master list is not a PDF, neither is the way that we operate with those knowledge shapes. So in conclusion, what we're looking at here is the master list forms a means of communication, a means of being able to assess capability and capacity. As we know, ISO 19650 is a big part that we need to be able to assess that capability and capacity. So the bottom right version of events is really the key one, that we are not judging everybody by a one-size-fits-all. What I want to do with this framework is two big things. One is I want to see training courses that start to represent different personas. I don't want everybody, as soon as they say to the market, I want to be trained on BIM, at the moment the response is, go and sit this course on ISO 19650 Part 2, regardless of who you are. I want to get away from that. I want to see training courses that are actually aimed at a niche, tailored market for each persona. And the second thing I want to do is to be able to compare apples with apples. Again, at that bottom right-hand screen, not looking at our supply chain and gauging where they are against their ISO 19650 Part 2 accreditation, but understanding what they need to know in order to do their job and assessing them against that benchmark. Okay, I missed my 10 minutes. I'm sorry, I got a bit passionate there. As we said earlier on, this isn't something that I can do on my own. I've proven that because I've been trying for 10 years. I need to get the industry involved. I need to get people to help out to deliver this. And that needs to come from commercial practice, from academia, from across the board. And I'm looking to pull these panels of people together that are willing to take a small section of these tables, to review them, to add to them, to put them back into the pot. To answer one of the questions from Di Evans there, how do we avoid doubling up? Just through careful sort of review, cross-checking, and working with this information amongst these panelists, and kind of working towards a kind of an initial master list. Ultimately, we will have to have some mechanism for bringing in new items. It can't just be a free-for-all. But yeah, I do. That is an issue that I've kind of thought about, is how do we identify the fact that two people have put the same thing on the list, they've just described it in different ways, is going to be a challenge, but that's what the panels of experts are going to be about. Are there any questions? Anybody still here?
We're all still here, Paul.
Good.
That was just it was great. It's a lot of information to digest. I think the main thing is if people want to get involved, we've got the QR code up on the screen now. And again, Paul's done the hard work for you. Click that, it even sets up the email. So nice and easy.
Yeah, and if there's any questions at all, by all means, get in touch. I've not come to you with the answers. I've come with an idea. There's a theory here that I'm willing to see pulled apart and put back together again. But I'm a big believer in not starting with a blank sheet of paper if we're going to have a committee to design something. So this is my version of not having a blank sheet of paper, but it's not by any means definitive. So